It's kind of freaky, folks, you know, when you see that sort of stuff, you can see how long they've had this plan in the making. You know, World Economic Forum rolling out their whole plan to restructure the world, the Great Reset that we need to combat this terrible crisis and the terrible state of police brutality that we find ourselves in. Everything that these people who run the World Economic Forum have done, and now they're offering us their solution, which is to basically lock everybody into a smart prison. The smart prison that I've been telling you they're rolling out for so long. You know, and to think that they've put this plan in place just kind of now as a response to COVID, I mean, you have to have rocks in your head, folks. The response was already there. They just needed the crisis in order to trigger the response. It's all about triggers, folks, you know. It is simply the trigger that they needed to roll out everything that they needed. Problem, reaction, solution, ladies and gentlemen. That's how they do it. Something else that I said, problem, reaction, solution, was that the protests, they needed the protests in order to justify the spike in cases and to justify the second wave. Interesting test too, you know, I mean, we know that these tests don't work. They even say that if you test negative, it may not really mean negative. If you test positive, it may not really mean positive. So if that's the case, what is the point of the tests? And they're also talking about the virus recession that we will probably have. There's, you know, investigations to find out just how bad the recession will be, the recession that's been caused by the virus. But folks, let's be clear about it. It has not caused a recession. There is no virus recession. A virus has not caused a recession. The recession that is coming has been caused by the politicians in their response to the virus. You know, the economy was due to collapse, folks. We've been talking about it for years. This economy cannot last. It has to go down. We've been talking about it for so long, and we can see it coming. But what do? They can't just let it collapse and have people blame them for it. They've got to create some other place to put the blame. Again, they create this whole... Then we have their response, which is to shut the world down, do everything they've done, and they can blame the virus. But it hasn't been the virus. It's been them all along, folks. You know, everything they've done has been deliberate. Even if you go to the World Economic Forum website and you look at the response for COVID, if you go to that website, you start clicking through, you've got to sign up for it. But if you start clicking through, one of the videos says that it's been a plan that has been 50 years in the making. If we don't wake people up, then they're going to lead us into this slavery system, whether we like it or not. You know, even if we refuse to comply, everybody else is going to lead us in there. That's the problem. You know, that's the problem with what we're facing here, folks. You know, we're at a really important time here. We really are. And you know, now is the time for everybody to realise that, you know, there's a war being waged against us. And we have a lot of tools that we can use to fight this war, and we can fight on the digital battlefield. Hit Twitter, hit Facebook, hit everywhere you can. Do everything you can to get the word out to people, folks, because there's nothing more important than this issue. Our whole world is changing. It's not going to go back. We're at a time in history where we find ourselves on the front line, all of us. We're on the front line here, folks. That's the thing. A lot of people just don't realise. World War III has already started. It's a war that's being waged against the people of the world by the politicians of the world. The problem is the people don't realise it's happening. This response to this social isolation, this removal of even our oxygen, we're not wearing masks. This is such bullshit, folks. Like I said, it's complete bullshit. Everything they're doing to us is to make us sick, folks. And that will be your second wave. You know, the second wave will be fear and paranoia driven more than anything else. I mean, the first wave is fear and paranoia driven. I mean, how can they even have a second wave? There wasn't a first wave. There hasn't ever been a pandemic. It's all been about this legislation. It's all been about this police state. The whole thing, ladies and gentlemen, these parasitic morons that we have masquerading as government. What matters is that we realise what's happening, and we realise the steps we need to take to get ourselves out of what's happening. You know, the steps we need to take to find freedom again. In my experience, everyone will say they want to discover the truth, right up until they realize that the truth will rob them of their deepest held ideas, beliefs, hopes, and dreams. The freedom of enlightenment means much more than the experience of love and peace. It means discovering a truth that will turn your view of life and self upside down. For one who is truly ready, this will be unimaginably liberating. But for one who is still clinging in any way, this will be extremely challenging indeed. How does one know if they are ready? One is ready when they are willing to be absolutely consumed, when they are willing to be fuel for a fire without end. It's important to understand that people bring you information just to keep you informed, but it's up to people to do something with this information. You can't just be assimilating information and be listening to the spy novel version of reality and thinking, oh geez, it's all very covert and intriguing. It's about sharing information and motivating people into action on their own turf, motivating people to stand up for their own freedom all around the world. And we really are coming down to the wire, ladies and gentlemen. And what's really going on here? Because nothing is what we're being told. I mean, that's a given, but what is really going on here? Is this all there is? There's got to be something more to this, and is everything that I've been told true? And how we got here is really a very interesting question to ponder. How we got here as far as the control system goes is, of course, someone had an idea, put it into motion, and here we are. But when you look at the control system and you look at what we've really done since the Industrial Revolution, if you will, it's really quite miraculous. It really is. Even when you look at what we've done in the last 30 or 40 years, technology has simply snowballed. Some of the technology we're using now is stuff that was never dreamt of when I was a child. It was all science fiction when I was a child. This was stuff out of Flash Gordon and bizarre comic books. But even Flash Gordon and some of the bizarre comic books didn't have the stuff that we've got now. It's really come out of nowhere, and it's snowballed to such an extreme. You really have to wonder where it all comes from. Many people have been asking this question, and it's so difficult to find where it comes from because of the mishmash of information that's out there for us to consume. The most effective way to hide a real conspiracy is to create a conspiracy culture around it, to make everything look like a conspiracy and to get everybody questioning anything. And when you do find a real truth, or if a real truth does get exposed, to embellish it to the point that it becomes unbelievable. So it just becomes another conspiracy theory with all the other conspiracy theories. And if you get a few people penning these ideas and putting them out there, or here's this ancient document to be found, and here's this ancient book that was printed and says all this stuff, and you really don't know. All you know is that what people have said it is. They've said what their document is. They've said when that book was printed, but we don't really know. It could have just been put out there with a date on it. We just don't know. We don't know what's been done to lead us astray and how many red herrings have been created and how effective the mechanism has been in creating these red herrings. Although, looking at the conspiracy culture today, I'd say it's been a pretty effective method they've used. But the point is, what I'm saying here is you can't really date a lot of the information that we believe we can date, because all that really can be confirmed is that which exists within living memory. That's all we've got. We don't really have any idea where we are, where we come from, or what's really going on here at all. And when you look at the growth of technology in the last 100 years, it really is quite amazing that we've managed to achieve what we've achieved, which again begs the question, where did it all come from? Where did technology come from? How did we come up with this stuff to begin with? Not to mention what we've got now, which is absolutely through the roof. Like I said, it's just snowballed in the last 30 to 40, 50 years. I mean, since the invention of television, it's just gone through the roof. And television is, of course, what's helped it go through the roof. Television and movies, predictive programming, all the futuristic stuff that they've been showing us for so long, just preparing us for this as a natural progression, but we never ask where it comes from. All this futuristic stuff. How do we come up with this stuff? If you were sitting there in a lab, would you come up with any of this stuff? That's the question, folks. Where did it come from? And people will hear that and they'll go, oh, well, it was the scientists. It was all the smart people. I'm not smart enough to do it. It was the smart guys. Really? Is that what you think? It was the smart people who just came up with all this stuff because they're just so smart? That's an interesting concept. Some of the ancient artifacts and monuments and things that are lying all over the earth, some of the round stone balls that you find through Costa Rica, the myriad of monuments you find all over the place through Peru and in Egypt and all sorts of places. None of these can be created through the technology that we've got now. None of them were created via any method that we know of. All these old monuments, stuff that we call ancient, are they really as ancient as what we think they are?